and welcome to our preview of perhaps the drought-ending playoff week, in which not just one but two teams end their droughts in magnificent fashion, and also a veteran quarterback progresses further down the playoffs, but for a new team. And unfortunately for the Colts, that veteran quarterback is not Phillip Rivers. This week we see the championship preview, I guess, divisional round. Bunch of different games that have more interest than the T-tail games in the wildcard round. Probably the most T-tail-ish game, and because Brash is a veteran T-tail ironer, we'll start with you, Brash. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, veterans, old blokes, teams with dumb names like Buccaneers and Saints, when there's neither a Buccaneer nor a Saint on either team, unless Trump shows up in the crowd. Who wins this one? And do we see any quarterback throw for more than 20 yards in the air?
Brady's been getting the ball out there still. Is Evans playing? Can I ask you that? How's his
I believe he's had both his arms cut off and his head amputated.
Okay, sure. So he's good to go. Are we going to have any more last-minute COVIDs? That's what I want to know this weekend.
You couldn't be so stupid as a team, could you? You couldn't surely be that stupid.
Who knows? Remember who we're talking about?
Yeah, I know. The
young footballers.
Yes.
Who does win this? This is intriguing.
It's the most game, but it's the hardest one to pick, I reckon.
I don't want to hear the Buccaneers fairy tale of Brady, right? I just don't want to hear it. I just don't want to hear that narrative, because it'll start out if they win this week, right?
You mean you don't want to hear the renaissance of Antonio Brown as a reformed man?
That as well, right? I just don't want to hear. I know they're holding off at the moment, the media. They're holding off at the moment because they don't want to jinx it. But they win this game and they're going to start the whole Brady, Brown, comeback player of the year. Forget that Alex Smith had his leg chopped off and reattached with sticky tape. That they'll give Antonio Brown comeback player of the year, right? That you can just see this crap happening. But on the other hand, I can't get excited by the Saints either. It's almost like
how many new stats records the Saints all set.
Well, this is what this is going to be about, isn't it? This is going to be a pissing contest. There'll probably be about three. Alvin Kamara might probably start the game on the bench and finish it there, because this is going to be all about who can throw the most touchdown passes. Man, I've got no idea who's going to win this. Bucks at the Saints.
Now, seriously, Fooey, while Brash is deciding if he can find a $2 coin that he can cut down the middle with his golf club and split each way and take a 50-50 bet, this might be the last time you see one or both potentially of Brady or Breeze. Which of the bras retire?
I think Breeze is most likely to retire.
A loser.
A loser. Well, I'm actually a bit more decisive than Brash on this one. I think the Saints will win. I'm hoping the Saints will win, because I wouldn't mind seeing Breeze in a freezing Lambeau Field. He'll probably grow icicles. He moves so slow. But I actually think the Saints will win. Neither team was all that impressive last week, but I think the Saints...
Yeah, record. Newsflash.
The Saints won both meetings in the regular season, and I don't think that's going to change. But I don't think Brady's going to retire after a loss here. So, yeah, to answer your question, neither is going to retire after a loss this week. Drew Brees will retire after a loss the following week.
Normally, after a predictive fest like that, I would give you so much shit. But you accurately predicted in a segment that's yet to see the airwaves the retirement/sacking of Doug Peterson. So I won't give you too much shit. I'll just say I wouldn't be banking on your $2 returning in nuggets. Think of it as a nugget bonus if it comes through. Brash, have you split the $2 coin? Have you managed to work that?
If with a proviso, if the Buccaneers actually use Fournette in the running game, I think they will win. If Fournette gets 15 carries, they win. How's that?
Interesting. Because one thing that stood out about the wildcard games was that, yes, old man Roethlisberger threw 68 attempts. The next most attempts was Rivers with 46. Everybody else threw under 40 attempts. That's not actual completions, it's attempts. All of a sudden, the running game in playoffs becomes relevant, doesn't it? Which I think is part of what you're saying, Brash, yeah?
Or there are teams with running games that get normally better teams. Yeah.
What about run defense? Which of the two teams has better run defense?
I am constantly amazed at how well the Saints defense ranks. I think we're the fourth best in the league for points for yards given up. I can't see how that happens.
They do have a very underrated middle linebacker in Demario Davis.
Oh, he's awesome. But
who's heard of him? No one's heard of him.
Exactly.
He doesn't garner the attention, does he?
No, and because they're too busy licking Breeze's balls for the whole game.
And having him on finance podcasts where he shares his view of Black Lives Matter. Right. Their front seven, though, apart from Davis, pretty anonymous in Saints territory, yeah?
There's a little bit of name recognition there. I think they clearly perform better than I rate them. That's all I can say. But I'm going to stick with, I think, times are marching, but my $2 is on the Bucks as long as they give Fournette the ball at least 15 times to run it.
Yeah, I was going to draw that out in a minute because I do think the one area. So, look, for me, Sean Payton is not my favourite person. I'd probably rate him slightly higher than Brash rates Pete Carroll, but not much. But one thing you have to give Payton credit for this year is he has finally accepted that Drew Brees cannot throw the ball more than 4 yards without an assist from a defender, and he's therefore adjusted their passing game. And that comes with some downside, which is I've noticed that their running backs in the Saints sometimes, in some games, struggle to adjust to having to also be receivers behind the line of scrimmage. So sometimes Cameron seems really comfortable with that. Other times he fumbles and has horrible drops as a receiver. He's still very solid as a running back, but he just doesn't. And Latavius Murray, I'm sorry, you can forget about him. He's not a receiving running back. Cue him get 4 receiving TDs. But for me, that's going to be because one of the things the Bucs defense is really good at is putting pressure on the rush. And unless they can develop a better short, because let's face it, Mike Thomas can be 70 yards down the field free by himself, but Breeze ain't throwing it 70 yards. And I just think that'll be the turning point of the game is if they can somehow find a way to overcome Breeze's deficiencies and keep a productive passing game, then they'll win.
One thing I'm stunned about with New Orleans this year is just how average Emmanuel Sanders has been made to look. And that's been without Thomas for most of the year. And Sanders is a damn good wide receiver, but it's just cameo performances from him. You only sort of notice he caught the ball after he I know it sounds weird. You only sort of notice him on the field maybe 2 or 3 times a game when he actually gets the ball thrown to him.
Yeah. Oh, that's the guy that used to play for the Bears. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, he just doesn't. He's not having that impact, and especially considering the salary he's on,
Anyway.
Moving right along to the next T-Tail game, because without wanting to demoralise any of our dear listeners, I do think that 2 of the 4 games this week are absolute T-Tail, boring yawn fest. Rams, Packers. Yeah. We might see John Morsfold start, but we might not. We might see Jared Goff in his 9 fingers and 1 thumb start. We might not. Who cares, really?
I do.
I'm not convinced that the Rams will be troubled at all by a Packers team that has had a triple, quadruple layered, soft baked, soft cooked, sugar coated, milk soaked marshmallow of a season and has no wide receivers beyond Devontae Adams and no running backs beyond AJ Dillon. Rodgers gets intercepted
and the
twice.
third best tight end in the league, receiving tight end in the league.
Big Bob. The fact that they managed to elevate someone of Big Bob's limited skill set to the 3rd best tight end in the league is an indictment of all the other tight ends in the league. Yes, I'm looking at you, Zach Ertz. As I was about to say, Rodgers gets intercepted twice. The Packers lose this one. And we're all courting how wonderful either or both of Jared Goff and John Morsfold are, when we really should actually be vaunting how great the Rams defense is. Brash, the offensive line of the Packers, can it really keep Aaron Donald out?
I think if Rodgers hasn't been thinking about it all week on the way he's going to play to counter Rodgers, then he's not the future Hall of Fame quarterback we know that he is. It's that simple. I don't even think this is a straight head-to-head coach versus coach, team versus team. This is fundamentally, you don't see a lot of one-on-one matchups other than maybe DBs on wide receivers. This is legitimately Donald v. Rodgers. And if Rodgers comes up with a game plan and a game style that counters the offensive line breakdowns that Donald's invariably going to cause, and it's not just him, it's his, some of his colleagues aren't doing too bad either on that defensive line. Fine. I still think they're weak as piss at the linebacker spot, the Rams. And that's where I think the Packers can beat them, because the Packers still play West Coast offense.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to have good you need to have good linebackers to counter the West Coast offense.
Exactly. Yeah, they go that nickel, short, mid, as long as it's in front of the line of scrimmage. And the Rams don't have the linebackers properly deployed. End of story. That said, I think you're underrating Leonard Floyd, and I think you're underrating the Okorokonokowo linebacker core. But anyway, we'll go with my prediction, I think, won't we all, which is that the Packers don't really have much of a chance in this game. Fu?
Are you just trying to stir me up here, or?
Well, Fu, I got one simple question for you. We've talked about the lack of wide receivers. We've talked about Aaron Donald and the phenomenal pass rush pressure that the Rams bring. But I'm going to pose a special question to you. How the fuck can the Packers win when they don't tackle?
Okay, first things first. How do you call this a T-tail game when you're predicting the 6th seed Rams go into Lambeau and defeat the number 1 seed Packers?
Excellent point.
So I think you're telling some little lies here somewhere.
I think the term that you're looking for is trolling.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so how will the Packers win by not tackling? By scoring 40 fucking points on this Rams defense.
Done. Next game.
All right. Our offensive line coach is probably the best in the league. The way he gets, because we've had injuries along this line all year long.
Have you played a game without Bakhtiari this year?
Yes. We played 3 games without him. We gave up 2 sacks in those 3 games.
Against which opponents? Marshmallow, milk-soaked, sugar-coated.
It was a while.
I do have a little bit of a fear, Fooey, that this could be like the way you got bounced out of the playoffs last year. And I think...
Brash, you're stealing my thunder, man. I had a whole bouncy castle joke worked up.
You wouldn't let me talk about the Packers last week, but I genuinely have a super feeling about this team. And I don't usually go on record as saying that, because I like to keep my cards close to my chest, and I don't like to blow the lid off, which I'm not. But this is where the defense has improved, because they may not tackle, that's fine. But what they're doing now that they weren't doing in the first 8 games is actually causing turnovers. We don't turn the ball over on offense. If we turn a few over on defense, we're going to win. Can you expect Jared Goff on a broken thumb to not turn the ball over? Can you expect Stone Hands?
I can't expect Jared Goff with a 100% fighting fit not to turn the ball over.
That's exactly right. Akers is a fumbling machine. So we're going to get the ball on short fields at least 2 or 3 times, I reckon. I really don't see the Rams beating us. They're going to have to throw the ball. We're going to score early. They're going to have to throw the ball, and Jared Goff can't throw the ball. Sean Worsfold, whatever the frig his name is, cannot throw the ball. They don't. What, they're going to bring Blake Bortles in as well? Fine, there's another 3 interceptions in a quarter. Fuck the Rams.
Magnificent.
I'll tell you why I'm going for the Packers, because I'm projecting what sort of most favourable Super Bowl matchup we can get, and Buccaneers in the playoffs would be intolerable, and for very similar reasons, the Saints in the Super Bowl would be intolerable, which leaves the Rams and the Packers, and I just can't cheer for the Rams in a Super Bowl, right? So that leaves the Packers. So it's a process of elimination for me. Anyway, what's the next game?
After that half-finished rant, you want to cut it off like that, Brash?
I did finish it off. I said that.
You finished your bit. Fooey's only just started.
No, Fooey's just going to give you another 10 minutes of the same shit.
Look, I could go on.
I can see Fooey's point of view, but I do like the Fooster, and I could not, because this week I don't care. I could see it's not beyond comprehension that the way the Packers lost last year to the 49ers could be repeated.
That sounds to me like a Fooey fence-sitting opinion, mate.
Think of how think of the look Rodgers had, that deer stare he had in that game last year when his offensive line could not protect him.
The Rams do not have the ability to control the ball like the Niners did last year.
Yeah. All right, I'll give you that. But I'm going for Packers. What's the next game?
The first non-T-tail game of the divisional round. We have the greatness that is Josh Allen up against the greatness that is Baker Mayfield.
No, we don't.
I'll throw to the quarterback whisperer.
No, we don't.
Bills Ravens, mate.
It's Bills Ravens, mate.
I'm just double checking to make sure you're paying attention. Yeah, right. Lamar versus Joshy Boy, which would be so much more interesting if it was my dream matchup of the two young quarterbacks who were both unproven, who have both got a lot of question marks. Instead, both of the games in the AFC are, with all due respect, one very experienced playoff quarterback and a very experienced coach against young up-and-comer teams. And that, for me, that's a real shame. I'd much rather it was Ravens-Chiefs against Bills-Browns.
Yes, clearly the Worsfold Rodgers game is a duel of two veterans. Jesus.
But I don't want the same damn script of young fella going up against. I mean, apart from the Saints Buccaneers, it is the same script in every one of the other three games. It's a young, inexperienced quarterback up against a guy that's had playoff success and has a veteran coach behind him. I think that's boring as batshit.
I think the better commentary is, other than which of these is not the same. Other than the Rams in the NFC, you got a whole bunch of old man Crocs being rolled out. And all four young breeds on the other side.
Yeah, but the difference for me in the AFC is that of the young breeds, they've all got young quarterbacks, fair enough, but the Ravens and the Chiefs have super established coaching and support and structural things. Both the Browns and the Bills, especially the Browns, are, in my opinion, super, super young in their organisational development. But that brings us to what I was trying to reschedule. It's a different game, but sadly I have to admit, it's Lamar against Josh Allen. Probably the tightest of the two games in the AFC in terms of performances this year. Lamar, when he's on, has been really strong, obviously, in his run. And Josh Allen has really developed his running game threat. He can throw amazing passes, has a beautiful arm. Fu, you're the quarterback whisperer, and I know you were a bit down on Lamar early in the year. Do you reckon he's bounced back enough to convincingly defeat the Bills? Or was that kind of a not very convincing win over a poorly coached Titans team, the high point of the Ravens' postseason run?
I think he was probably played into form a bit, into running form, I should say. B, I think this is going to be like the first playoff game ever where we'll see both quarterbacks run for more yards than they'll pass for. It's just going to be two quarterbacks running around. I'm actually not looking forward to it because I do like to see good quarterback play. Allen is probably the better quarterback. And I think that's probably why the Bills will win.
What do you think, Brash? Does the loss of Zach Moss hurt the Bills? They become a bit one-dimensional without him.
Yeah, it does hurt him. It does hurt him a little bit, but
don't forget the addition of Devonta Freeman.
But Devonta Freeman's here, mate, and that'll make all the difference.
More fundamentally, what's the defensive balance? The Ravens, like we talked about earlier in our review of the wildcard games, the Ravens have traditionally built their game around really aggressive defense. The Bills are a bit more, this year especially, they've been very promising in some games, but then their defense sometimes falls apart a bit. Like they only had one sack in the wildcard game. Can they really bring it against Lamar?
It's a bit of a worry. It has gone off the ball a little bit in recent weeks. It's really academic, how good your defensive backs are, how good your pass rush is. It's all about controlling what Jackson does when it's all said and done.
Mm-hmm.
As it pains me to say it, I think if the Ravens try and win this with as Fui calls it, by Lamar Jackson being a quarterback, they're going to get in trouble. I got a feeling, and I hate this because, I'm one step closer to my dream matchup of Bills-Chiefs, that the Ravens are going to play spoiler on me just because they're a little bit more battle-hardened at this point of the season.
Food, it comes down to Lamar and nobody else for the Bills. Sorry, the Ravens versus the Bills. Or does somebody like Mark Andrews put his hand up and have a blockbuster?
Yeah, well, obviously, as I discussed earlier, the Colts tight ends had a bit of a field day against the Bills, against the was that right? Yeah, against the Bills defense. Yeah. So
hang on, was that right?
So you'd think I'd probably rate the Ravens tight ends a bit better than the Colts as well. So chances are, Andrews could have a pretty big game.
Yeah, I'm rating the weapons that Baltimore has because I think J.K. Dobbins wasn't used very well in that game against the Titans. I think if they can use him effectively when the defense keys on Lamar as a running threat, they can deploy J.K. on some feints and some fakes. They get a lot out of him. And between Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews, they actually have some decent receiving threats versus you're basically talking, to borrow a phrase that Brash used in the review of the Wildcards, an aged and drop-prone Cole Beasley and who the hell is Gabriel Davis, and that's it. Ain't nobody else beyond Stephon Diggs, which is not unlike the one-dimensional team that features Devontae Adams.
But the thing that's been amazing with the Diggs-Allen connection is Allen seems to be able to hit Diggs. Diggs is always capable of doing enough to get open or enough open, and Allen has the arm strength and arm talent generally to get it there.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm stretching it too far to say that I think ultimately the game turns on Josh Allen. And for me, the beauty of this particular showdown, much as I seriously would have preferred these two games in the AFC to be the two young'uns against the two more established, the one beauty of this game is it does pit two teams that are very much quarterback driven for success against each other. And I think it's going to be a real... If the Bills win this, they're gonna be a real force. And conversely, if the Ravens lose it, and Fu, what do you reckon? I mean, if the Ravens lose it, question marks over Lamar, question marks over Highball all of a sudden, bit like the Titans, maybe they're falling away.
I think so. It's probably been a number of years without getting close enough to a Super Bowl. It's not. He's not going to get fired or anything like that. They're not going to get rid of Lamar. But you'd think they'd have to make some changes to the offense just to see if they can generate something else other than you're running your quarterback running for 150 yards and a bit of a little bit of help from the other running backs. So we've been talking about being, one-dimensional. Not that the Packers are, mind you. We talk about being one-dimensional, and the Ravens are. So you stop that run, you're going to stop them. So if they lose this, they need to retool a bit.
Final question, Brash, for you. Who has the most turnovers, noting that the Bills had no interceptions and no sack and forced no fumbles, and the Ravens had one interception and one sack?
If everyone plays the form, I don't think there'll be a lot of turnovers in this game, full stop.
Oh, interesting.
It could be like 1-1, 2-1, or maybe none at all.
Interesting. All right, let's wrap it up with the game everybody on the board has been dreaming to see. Baker Mayfield goes to visit Patrick Mahomes and Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Is he playing? Is he playing?
No, but he'll be in the stands.
BPG runs the NFL injury report. BPG will turn up dead and buried in the Nevada desert because the bookies can't set good spreads because they're relying on his injury reports.
Yeah, just next to my pointer operation, right? Yeah.
Oh, let's get this over with. Brown's got no chance.
Really? Is it that obvious? I thought it was just me.
The Chiefs
is Chad Henne going to start again for the Chiefs?
Oh, yeah, right. What planet do you want? Is that you put Mahomes on the injury report too, have you?
Honest question. Mainly because I want to know if they're also going to trot out a wide receiver with the surname of Pringle, so I can ask if Pringle's chips are down.
Oh, dear. You've been waiting a week for that, haven't you, that one?
I've been waiting 3 weeks for that one. Thank you very much. Yeah, look, serious question. I do think it's not a bad test for Mahomes because he isn't playing, unlike certain other teams that have played their whole season against sugar-coated, milk-soaked marshmallows. Mahomes has played a number of teams that got really solid defenses, and I think the Browns certainly were favored by some appalling center play and some really bad quarterback play by Big Ben, but they still have a pretty decent, anytime you trot out Myles Garrett, you're trotting out a defense that's got some ability. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that defense performs when they're up against Mahomes. Am I overrating the defense a bit,
yes.
Fu?
Yeah. Sorry, go Philly.
Yeah, no, yeah. You talk about a team that doesn't have any linebackers, and that's the Browns.
Who needs linebackers when the opposing center snaps it into the end zone?
Exactly. They're not even full strength, the Browns. They are missing Ward. The only good player they have on that defense at the moment is Myles Garrett, and I don't think he is probably currently good enough to carry that defense over a top offense like the Chiefs.
You concur, Brash?
Myles Garrett was facing a quarterback who is basically, as you keep pointing out, about 38 kilos overweight, dropped back 68 times and didn't record a sack or a pressure last week. So I'm not sure if you're counting on him to. I'm pretty sure. Let me think about it. I might have to run the tape on it, but I'm pretty sure Patrick Mahomes is a little bit more agile than Big Ben these days. I just don't think the Browns were gifted 28 points and one of the worst coaching decisions in history to get over the line, and still only, when you look at it, only just got over the line. I'm worried about whether the Browns have closer killer instinct in them yet. It worried me watching them playing 10 metres off the wide receivers just at the start of the second quarter.
Why would you not start prevent defense at the beginning of the second quarter?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how dangerous COVID is? You have to maintain your social distancing,
What's the stats? You get 12 to 14 possessions per game. Given how the Steelers had already given up, had no possessions, basically just gave it up. Like the first time they got the ball, they didn't even have to possess it, really. There were more than enough opportunities for the Steelers to close that gap. Because one thing about going down by a lot is if you're going to go down by a lot and you want to win, go down by a lot early. Right? Don't go down by 28 halfway through the third quarter. They were down by 28 at the start of the second quarter, and the Browns are playing the biggest standoff prevent defense I've seen ever, like literally ever. Right, short of fielding for Hail Marys, they were. So I'm still worried that Myles Garrett did not get a pressure or a sack with a quarterback that dropped back 68 times.
Well, let me give you a different perspective on why I'm a bit worried about the Browns. What's the date of this game?
American date or Australian date?
No,
17th of.
So it'll be Monday, January the 18th. It'll be televised here. It was Monday, December the 28th that Baker Mayfield took 53 pass attempts, fumbled the ball twice, and didn't manage to throw for 300 yards. That's not even 3 weeks ago. And that was against the New York fucking Jets. I think it's safe to say that the Chiefs are a damn sight better than the New York Jets.
No, I don't think anybody is anointing the arrival of Baker Mayfield based on the weekend's game.
My point's a little bit, and I agree with that. And it's actually been refreshing that he's not. They're not doing what Philly fans did with Carson Wentz and making him the next great thing. They're being much more balanced about it, and that's to their credit. I'm actually trying to pick up on a point, which, well, it shocks me to say it. I think American Crows sold me on it. 53 pass attempts is way too many for that Browns team. Nick Chubb only had 11 rushing attempts in that game against.
And
you've got to get that balance. So when they played the Steelers, one of the great things they did, and yes, they were a big way in front, so they could afford to rush the ball a bit, but they still got a much better balance. I'm just not sure the Chiefs. I mean, Andy Reid's a pretty canny. He gets a lot of credit for his offense. He's also a pretty canny defensive operator. I don't reckon he's going to let them throw the ball that many times without picking them off, you know?
He may have to, though. But Chubb and Hunt can take it to the house from anywhere anyway.
Oh, good. And they're very good receiving
the
running backs,
of not calling run plays for the Browns doesn't wash in my mind, right? There are a couple of teams, the same as like if the Saints are down, they'll still give it to Kamara. If it's 1 week in 8 that he's actually playing, the 49ers will give it to Mostert if they're down by a lot. So there's no reason for them not to. It's more it's very hard to not keep track of what American Crow's thoughts are around play calling of the Browns, right?
Pass it more. But
there's no correlation to game situation with their run pass, right? They can be up by or down by 7 and still run, and then be up by 3 and pass, and there's no correlation to what they've done to this point in time. But sometimes coaches see something in the opposition that they think they can exploit, and coaches can be a bit like politicians. They're very reluctant to admit they're wrong and change their game style.
There was no violence. It was a perfectly acceptable rally.
Nonetheless, if Mahomes,
sorry, mate.
I was just going to give you my prediction. If Mahomes eliminates some of these uncharacteristic errors he's been making, and the offensive line actually starts blocking again like they used to be, I don't think this is close.
Blowout of the week by the Browns, obviously, you're tipping.
No.
Louis, obviously, you've already picked your result. Can I just ask, would you be stunned if Mahomes was sacked 6 times and intercepted twice?
Yes. Yes, I would be.
Would you be even more stunned if Rodgers was intercepted more times?
Yes, I would be.
Okay. All right. I'm going to put my $4 on Fui being stunned, and we'll just leave it at that.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your previews. Can I just ask, as one last wrap-up of what I think is believed officially called the divisional rounds? This is a bit of a curly question, so I'll give you 2 or 3 minutes each to answer. Actually, sorry, 2 questions. First one, will we see the surrender index on punting broken for the 4th week in a row and somebody punt from the 1st and goal?
Say that question again.
For the last 3 weeks, the surrender index has been broken week after week in that punts have been committed to when we've been on 4th and 1 in situations like 4th and 1 at the 46 of the opponent where you wouldn't normally punt.
Not in the last 2 weeks.
What I'm asking is, will we see someone punt on 1st and goal? Sorry, 4th and goal.
It's unlikely, I think, especially with these coaches. The most of these coaches that are still in it are fairly aggressive. So
on 4th and goal.
Yep.
Why would you punt on 4th and goal, even if there was valid reason to not kick the field goal?
What if you've taken 3 20-yard sacks on the first, 2nd, and 3rd downs?
Fui finally sees inside the question because that's the only possible scenario.
There was a
4th
scenario
and goal
on the weekend.
from your own 29-yard line.
I think there was about a 1st and 35 or something, if I recall.
Yeah, there's actually a couple of them in 2 different games.
Mm.
Anyway, more seriously, so we're down to our last 8, which is week 19 of the season. That's 8 remaining out of 20 real teams. If you cut out the ones that are just making up the numbers, like the Bengals.
How can you say that? There's some of those in the playoffs still. So you got to count 32.
Not in the 8 that we've got left. There were last week, but I think everybody would agree that all 8 of these teams at least are in the top 20 in the league.
I don't know about the Rams.
Ooh.
Anyway, keep going.
My question is, which of these 8 teams that lose will drop away? Because I did kind of flag this one jokingly when I was talking about the Buccaneers-Saints game. I reckon we could potentially be seeing the last of the Packers, the Saints, and the Bucks for a while.
You're talking about the quarterbacks themselves.
No, teams in the playoffs.
Well, if you pick those 3 teams, they go as their quarterback goes.
That's my whole point, kind of. But
right. So, if everything was equal of the 8, I think the Rams are the ones that would be headed towards the mediocrity. But the team that may lose their starting quarterback, if all 8 of them, the ones that realistically could lose their starting quarterback, I think New Orleans is probably the one in the biggest trouble because they've got no salary cap either.
Mm-hmm. Fu? Is there a bigger risk that the Browns implode and never get back to the playoffs for another 30 years? Or is it more likely that the NFC produces the teams that drop away?
Well, the Browns are always a chance to implode. Let's be honest. They've got recent history of such things. I mean, look, you're right in a way, but look, the Packers are not going to fall away next year. Aaron Rodgers is your MVP for this year. He has well exceeded anyone's expectations, especially before the season started. Brady is still playing well enough to lead another playoff run next year. He hasn't fallen off a cliff like Breeze has, which, look, it could happen at, 44 years old, I think it'd be at the start of next year. But the Saints will. Breeze is done. The Saints will fall off a cliff next year, no doubt.
Thank you, gentlemen. For what it's worth, I think, as I've said, my tip is we won't see the Buccaneers, the Saints, or the Packers in the playoffs next year.
I think you'll see the Packers by virtue, and with a pretty solid winning record by virtue, is I reckon that the NFC North could well inherit the title of worst division in footy next year.
No.
Oh, really? Bears?
Yeah.
Bears? You got
Trubisky, mate. Trubisky.
Clarification
Detroit.
point. Sorry. Clarification point required. And it's an important clarification. Do you mean the most one-sided where there's one really good team that finishes at the top, or a fake good team that finishes at the top because they have a marshmallow soaked in milk sugar-coated draw?
7 games.
Or do you mean a really bad division like this year's historic NFC least, where not one team?
No, there'll be one standout. There'll be a standout because the Packers, will need no more than 7 wins to win the division, and they'll be gifted 6 of their interdivisional ones, so they'll be in the playoffs again next year.
And they'll probably get at least a few games against the NFC East, won't they?
They could start, depending on how the schedule works out, they could start resting Rodgers after week 9.
Keep on hating, gentlemen.
I'm not hating. I'm just calling it as it is.
My point is,
keep on hating your 2020 Super Bowl champions. Thank you.
No, the 2020 Super Bowl champions were the Kansas City Chiefs. Thank you very much.
2020 season.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Right,
anyway, and look, I've been trolling and teasing a little bit, but I do want to wrap up by saying, on a serious note, to the board, have a think about it, because one thing that does stand out about this group of 8 is it's a magnificent mix of some really young quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and some real veterans that have absolutely proven themselves. It might be the last time we see some of these guys in playoffs. So if you can, watch the games. Some of them will be tea-towel quarters, maybe even a tea-towel half. But it is at the end of a remarkably disrupted year, a year where all kinds of shit has gone wrong. It really is the cream rising to the top with some incredibly exciting young blokes. I mean, before the season started, who the hell would have picked Josh Allen to single-handedly lead his team to the playoffs, to the divisional round? Wouldn't have happened.
On the back of the defense, though.
No. Maybe a little bit more of the defense, but I think the Buffalo Bills were the preseason favourites to win the division.
Yeah,
they had the Jets, a rebuilding Dolphins, and a end of era Pats team. So that didn't. None of the teams.
So you picked the Bucks, the Saints, and the Bills to all make the playoffs, yeah?
No, I said nothing.
And remember, I have
said it's not surprising that they are there.
Okay.
Same as, like, the shock for me is obviously the 49ers not being there, but is it not surprising that they are not there given their year? Not at all. It would have been some sort of miracle that they were. As soon as Brady went to watching the way the Bucks went last year with Winston, of course, once Brady showed that he could still be sort of Brady after about week 2 or 3, that shouldn't have been a surprise to anybody, especially with the imploding Falcons and Carolina still trying to work out, or in the middle of their retooling as well. So, no, I don't think.
So no surprises. Everybody was ready for this playoff round. Nothing to watch here.
No.
All tea-towel games.
Of course. It's just totally misquote, right? You're going to talk about Corona not existing again? What I'm saying is, it is not like we're still sitting here going, how the fuck are the Jacksonville Jaguars in the divisional round? right? There's none of that, right? How the fuck are the Jets favourites to win the Super Bowl, right? There's none of that. There's fair argument for all the teams, whether it be because of, you can't say we were surprised about where the Packers are, because I've been saying all year they could have nearly gone undefeated. And I said at the start of the year, it was going to be, sorry, not the start of the year, as the 49ers' woes got worse and worse, it was always a toss-up between Seattle and the Rams. So I don't think there's a big surprise there. A little bit surprised with Houston. Thought they would have bounced back a bit. I thought, as stupid as Bill O'Brien basically is as stupid as he appeared. I thought there might have been something that he was doing that was smarter than what we could see, but clearly not. The biggest disappointment is the NFC East. That's the only one that no one would have predicted that. I think everyone had the Cowboys winning that division pretty easily.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, Chisholm, your team underperformed. I will say probably the last comment from me on these teams is that I don't know that people would have predicted the Titans not making the divisional round. That for me is the big upset. I'm not surprised, and we've repeatedly called the Steelers out in the second half of the year as either somewhat fraudulent or fully fraudulent. It doesn't surprise me that they didn't make it to the divisional round. It does surprise me that the Titans didn't make it.
That's a big call, man. That's a big call, because to almost guarantee what you're saying is an expectation to be in the final four in your division, you are truly elite. And I don't think the Titans were ever truly elite.
Yeah, I guess we've got a different opinion. That's why we make a great podcast.
I just don't see them as one of the best four teams in the AFC. Never have.
But I'm not convinced that people viewed the Browns as in the best four teams in the AFC. And in fact, we might even have some tape about what.
No, they're not. No one had the Browns doing that. They did the year before when they won the off season.
Yes, and look how that turned out.
And maybe they're just playing up a little bit to expectation. But once you get to the final four, it's a bit of potluck as well, isn't it?
It's the
seriously,
matchups. If the Titans were playing not the Ravens, but if the Titans were playing the Browns, who wins that one?
Well, I doubt the Titans give up 28 points in the first quarter. So,
and their defense doesn't let the Browns off that easy at the offensive line either, does it?
And the Browns' narrative is totally different this week. Or at least we got to the playoffs again. That would
participation trophy.
And they would have been happy with that. But I do feel from a bit that they get, you get beaten down fair by two teams that are perennially up there or thereabouts. That would get annoying.
Oh, constantly. And I think the last comment I'd have on this, and it's something that sounds probably a bit counterintuitive given my team plays in the worst division in football, but I'm really happy, much as I predicted Washington would cause an upset. I'm actually really happy that the worst division in football didn't get past the wild card round. And I'm really happy that most of the 8 teams are legitimately quality teams with quality players, and it should be, like I said before, a really good chance, potentially for the last time ever, to see some of our greatest ever players, but also to see some young up and comers. So get on it, watch it. Fooey, whatever you do, don't bet your nuggets, because you're a hungry man and you got to have your nuggets. All right, just bet your $2 coins and nothing more. All right,
I will do my best.
All right, dudes.
And see you later. Thanks everybody for the podcast.
All right, guys, have fun. Take care.
You do.